The glass had been broken from the inside out, which meant someone had a key. Camila Rios stood on the sidewalk outside her boutique at 2:43 in the morning, arms wrapped around herself despite the humid August air, watching the patrol officer shine his flashlight across the scattered mannequins and overturned racks. $3,000 in silk blouses gone, 14 custom orders due by Friday. One unsigned note left on the counter in block letters. "You don't get to ignore me." She should have filed the report 3 weeks ago when the flowers started arriving without a card. Then the phone calls, silent, breathing, always at 9:17 at night. Then the photos slipped under her apartment door, her leaving the gym, her at the coffee shop, her locking up the boutique with the sunset caught in the window glass. The officer clicked off his flashlight. "Ma'am, you'll need to come down to the precinct. Detective on duty will take your full statement." Camila pressed her thumb against the small silver compass she wore on a chain, her grandmother's engraved on the back with true north, and nodded. She had ignored the warning signs long enough. Precinct 7 smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead in a rhythm that made Camilla's jaw tighten. She sat in a plastic chair bolted to the floor, her purse clutched in her lap, watching officers move past the front desk with the easy confidence of people who belonged. A drunk man slumped in the corner, muttering to himself. A teenager in handcuffs stared at the floor. Somewhere down the hall a phone rang and rang. Camila did not belong here. She had built her boutique from nothing. 4 years of 16-hour days of learning to read fabric suppliers and negotiate with landlords, of teaching herself bookkeeping on YouTube at midnight. She knew how to handle difficult customers and late shipments and the occasional bounced check. She did not know how to handle someone who knew where she lived, where she worked, where she bought her morning tea. The desk sergeant glanced up. "Detectives ready for you. Third door on the left." Camila stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked down the hall with her chin up. She would file the report. She would follow the process. She would not fall apart in front of strangers. She pushed open the door marked Interview 3. The man at the desk stood the moment she entered, and Camilla's breath caught in her throat. Miguel Hart. 6'2", shoulders still broad beneath his white dress shirt, dark hair cropped shorter than she remembered. He had the same scar along his jawline, from a suspect's ring he'd told her once back when they still told each other everything. His eyes met hers, and for one terrible second, neither of them moved. "Camila," he said quietly. Her throat went dry. "Miguel." 3 years. 3 years since she had walked out of their apartment with 2 suitcases and a broken heart, since she had blocked his number and deleted every photo, since she had sworn she would never let him close enough to hurt her again. And now here he stood, the detective assigned to her case, holding a pen like it might anchor him to the floor. Miguel cleared his throat. "I transferred here 2 months ago. I didn't know." He stopped, started again. "I can request a different detective if you'd prefer." Camilla's first instinct was to say yes. Her second was to remember the note on her counter, the photos under her door, the silent calls that woke her in the dark. She needed someone competent, someone who would take her seriously, someone who would not dismiss her fear as paranoia or overreaction. Miguel had always been good at his job. That had never been the problem. "No," she said, and sat down across from him. "I need this handled. Can you do that?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." She opened her purse and pulled out the envelope she had been carrying for 3 weeks. Every unsigned card, every printed photo, every timestamp from her phone log. She laid them on the desk between them like evidence at trial. "Then let's start," Camila said. Miguel reached for the first photo and his hand did not shake. Miguel spread the evidence across the desk with the methodical precision she remembered. Each item aligned, each date noted in his small, careful handwriting. He did not touch her, did not lean too close, did not let his voice soften into anything other than professional neutrality. "Walk me through the timeline," he said. Camila did. She told him about the first bouquet of white roses left at her boutique door 4 weeks ago. No card, no delivery receipt. About the calls that started 2 days later. Always at 9:17 at night. Always silent except for the sound of breathing. About the photos slipped under her apartment door. 1 on a Monday morning, 2 on Wednesday, 3 on Friday. About yesterday's break-in, the stolen inventory, the note. Miguel's pen moved steadily across the report form. Any idea who might be doing this? No. Ex-boyfriend, customer, someone from the neighborhood? I don't date, Camilla said flatly. I work, that's it. Something flickered in Miguel's expression, but he only nodded. Okay, here's what we're going to do. He pulled a fresh sheet of paper and drew a simple grid. You're going to document everything. Every call, every delivery, every time you feel followed. Write down the time, the location, what you noticed. Keep receipts, keep photos, keep anything physical. Don't throw anything away. I've been doing that. Good. Miguel tapped the paper. I'm going to pull surveillance footage from the shops around your boutique and your apartment building. I'll canvass your neighbors, check if anyone saw someone hanging around. I'll also run a background check on anyone who's had access to your store in the past 2 months. Vendors, contractors, delivery drivers. Camilla's chest loosened slightly. This was what she needed. A plan, a process, a way forward. Miguel set down his pen and met her eyes. But we need to establish boundaries. I'm your assigned detective, which means I handle the investigation. Officer Reyes, she's on patrol in your district, will be your primary contact for any immediate concerns. You call her, not me. You text her, not me. If something happens at 3 in the morning, you call 911 and then you call her. Why? Because I'm your ex-husband, Miguel said bluntly. And if this case ever goes to court, a defense attorney will argue I was personally motivated. I can't afford to give them that opening, neither can you. Camilla hated that he was right. Fine, she said. Reyes for contact. You for investigation. Anything else? Miguel pulled a small notepad from his desk drawer and wrote a single word in block letters. Lighthouse. He tore off the page and slid it across to her. If you're ever in a situation where you need immediate help but can't speak freely, if someone's standing too close, if you're on a call and feel unsafe, use this word. Say it however you can work it in. Reyes will know, I'll know. Camila folded the paper and tucked it into her purse next to her grandmother's compass. Lighthouse, she repeated. Miguel stood. I'll have a patrol increase their rounds past your apartment and the boutique. In the meantime, change your locks, check your windows, and don't go anywhere alone after dark, understood? Camilla stood as well, slinging her purse over her shoulder. Understood. She turned toward the door, but Miguel's voice stopped her. Camila. She looked back. I'll find whoever's doing this, he said quietly. I promise. Once, she would have believed him without question. Now she only nodded and walked out into the fluorescent hallway, her grandmother's compass a small, cold weight against her chest. Promises were easy. Keeping them was something else entirely. 5 days later, Camilla stood in the back room of her boutique, sorting through the insurance paperwork, when the bell above the front door chimed. She glanced at the security monitor Miguel had helped her install. A man in his 40s, khaki jacket, hands in his pockets, scanning the racks with the slow deliberation of someone who was not there to buy anything. Her pulse kicked up. She reached for her phone, Reyes's number already on speed dial, but before she could press it, the man turned toward the counter and smiled. Camila Rios? She stepped into the front room, keeping the counter between them. Can I help you? The man pulled a small recording device from his pocket and set it on the counter. David Chen, Riverside Observer. I understand you filed a police report for stalking and vandalism. Would you be willing to comment on... No, Camilla said sharply. The public has a right to know. The public has a right to stay out of my private life, Camilla interrupted, her voice rising. I didn't call the press. I called the police. So unless you're here to buy something, you need to leave. Chen's smile thinned. I could write this story with or without your cooperation. Wouldn't you rather? The door chimed again. Miguel walked in, still in his white dress shirt and badge clipped to his belt, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mr. Chen, Miguel said pleasantly. I thought the Observer had a policy about harassing crime victims. Chen's jaw tightened. I'm conducting an interview. You're trespassing, Miguel said. Ms. Rios asked you to leave. I'm asking you to leave. If I have to ask a third time, I'll do it with handcuffs. He nodded toward the door. Your choice. Chen snatched his recorder off the counter and walked out without another word. The bell chimed behind him, cheerful and incongruous. Camilla exhaled slowly. How did you know he was here? Reyes saw him loitering outside and texted me. Miguel glanced at the security monitor. He's been sniffing around the precinct, trying to get details on open cases. I should have warned you he might show up. Thank you, Camilla said, and meant it. Miguel's expression softened slightly. You handled him well. Most people freeze when a reporter ambushes them. I've had practice saying no. It was meant as a neutral observation, but the moment the words left her mouth, Camilla realized how they sounded. Like a reference to all the times she had said no to Miguel during their marriage, when he had asked her to wait just one more month before they tried for a baby, just one more case before he took time off, just one more late night at the precinct before he came home. She had said no to waiting, no to compromise, no to being second place in his life. And then she had said no to the marriage entirely. Miguel's face went carefully blank. Right. Well, call Reyes if he comes back. He turned toward the door, but paused with his hand on the frame. And Camilla, change your route home tonight. Take the long way, just in case. He left before she could answer. Camilla touched the compass at her throat and watched him disappear down the street, a tall figure in the late afternoon sun. Some habits, it seemed, were harder to break than others. The neighborhood association meeting took place in the community center on Oak Street, a low-ceilinged room with folding chairs and a persistent smell of old carpet. Camilla attended because Miguel had asked her to. Whoever's doing this might live nearby. Watch for anyone who pays too much attention to you. Take notes. And because sitting at home alone with her new locks and security cameras felt like letting fear win. She sat in the back row, notepad in her lap, while the association president droned on about parking permits and tree trimming. Around her, neighbors chatted in low voices, sipped coffee from paper cups, checked their phones. No one looked at her twice, until the man in the third row turned around. He was older, late 50s maybe, with wire-rimmed glasses and a neatly trimmed beard. And when his eyes landed on Camilla, he smiled. Not a polite nod, not a neighborly acknowledgement, a smile that lingered too long, that traveled from her face to her hands to the compass at her throat. Camilla's stomach clenched. She wrote in her notepad, third row, glasses, beard, staring. The man stood, walked to the back table for more coffee, and paused beside her chair. You're the boutique owner, aren't you? Over on 7th? Yes. I walk past your shop sometimes, beautiful window displays. He tilted his head. Must be hard working alone like that. Long hours. Camilla's hand moved toward her phone. It's manageable. I'm sure. He took a sip of coffee, still standing too close. If you ever need help with anything, deliveries, security, whatever, I'm just around the corner. Harold Finch, 212 Maple Street. Before Camilla could respond, a voice cut across the room. Mr. Finch, I believe the president asked you a question about the tree ordinance. Miguel stood near the door, arms crossed, his badge visible against his belt. He was not smiling. Finch's expression flickered, surprise, annoyance, then forced cheer. Of course, excuse me. He walked back to his seat without looking at Camilla again. Miguel stayed by the door for the rest of the meeting, his presence a quiet wall between her and everyone else. When the president finally called for adjournment, Camilla gathered her things and walked over to him. You're following me now? She said quietly. Reyes mentioned you'd be here. I was in the area. Miguel's tone was neutral, professional, but his jaw was tight. What did Finch say to you? He offered to help with my shop. Said he lives on Maple Street. 212? Yes. Miguel pulled out his phone and typed a quick note. I'll run his background check if he has priors. Did he touch you? No. Good. Miguel pocketed his phone and finally looked at her directly. "How are you holding up?" It was the first personal question he had asked in 5 days, and Camilla did not know how to answer. The truth was that she slept 3 hours a night, that every footstep in the hallway outside her apartment made her freeze, that she checked the locks on her boutique door 5 times before leaving each night. The truth was that she was tired and scared and grateful Miguel was the one handling her case, even if it complicated everything. "I'm managing," she said, echoing her earlier words to Finch. Miguel's expression softened, just barely. "Camila." She shook her head. "Don't, please," he nodded, stepping back. "Call Reyes if you need anything." Camilla walked out into the parking lot, her notepad tucked under her arm, the August heat pressing against her skin. Behind her, she heard Miguel's footsteps pause, then follow at a careful distance, close enough to watch, far enough to honor the boundaries they had drawn. She touched her grandmother's compass and thought of true north. Some directions never changed, even when the map did. The delivery arrived at Camilla's boutique on a Thursday morning. A large box, no return address, her name printed on the label in block letters she recognized from the note left after the break-in. Her hands shook as she photographed the label, the box, the way it sat on her doorstep like a threat wrapped in cardboard. She called Reyes. Reyes called Miguel. 20 minutes later, Miguel and a forensics technician named Lee stood in the boutique's back room, gloves on, carefully cutting open the box while Camilla watched from the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. Inside, 24 white roses, wilted and brown, wrapped in plastic, and beneath them, printed on cheap paper, a map. Miguel lifted it carefully, holding it by the edges. "It's a route, from the precinct to your apartment." He pointed to a red X marked halfway along the path. "This is the coffee shop on 9th. You stop there most mornings." Camilla's stomach turned. How would they know that? "Because they're watching." Miguel's voice was flat, controlled, but his hands were not quite steady. He turned to Lee. "Bag everything. I want prints, fibers, anything you can pull." Lee nodded and got to work. Miguel pulled off his gloves and turned to Camilla. "When was the last time you varied your routine?" "I don't know. A week? 2? Starting today, you vary it every day. Different route to work, different time, different coffee shop. Don't tell anyone. Not friends, not customers, not social media. Understood?" "Understood." Miguel ran a hand through his hair, his detective mask slipping for just a moment. "I'm going to increase patrols again. I'll also pull footage from the coffee shop cameras. See if anyone's been loitering." "What if you don't find anything?" "Then we wait for them to make a mistake." Miguel's eyes met hers. "They will. They always do." Camilla wanted to believe him. She touched her grandmother's compass, the metal warm from her skin, and tried to remember what true north felt like. What it felt like to trust someone completely, to believe in promises, to think that safety was something more than new locks and security cameras. "Miguel," she said quietly. "The map." They marked the precinct. Miguel's jaw tightened. "I know. That means they know I filed a report. They know you're investigating." "I know. So they're escalating." "Yes." Miguel stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Which is why you need to be more careful than ever. No walks after dark. No solo trips to the boutique. No answering the door unless you know exactly who's on the other side." Camilla nodded, her throat tight. Miguel hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. On it, handwritten, was a phone number. "This is my direct line. Not the station, not Reyes, me. If something feels wrong, if you see someone following you, if you hear something outside your apartment, if you just need to know someone's listening, call. I don't care what time it is." She took the card, her fingers brushing his for half a second. "I thought I wasn't supposed to contact you directly." "You're not," Miguel said. "But I'd rather break protocol than have you hurt." Before Camilla could respond, Lee cleared her throat. "Detective, I've got something." They both turned. Lee held up a small slip of paper, barely 2 inches square, that had been tucked into the roses. On it, in the same block letters, were 5 words: "You can't hide from me." Miguel's expression went cold and hard. He took the note from Lee, bagged it, and turned back to Camilla. "Pack a bag," he said. "You're not staying at your apartment tonight." "Where am I supposed to go?" "A friend, a hotel, somewhere that's not on your regular route." Miguel's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "I'll have Reyes escort you. And Camilla?" He waited until she met his eyes. "This ends soon, I promise." Camilla folded his card and tucked it into her pocket next to her grandmother's compass. Promises, she thought, and walked out to meet Reyes in the late morning sun. Camilla stayed at the Riverside Inn that night, a small hotel 3 miles from her apartment, paid for in cash under Reyes's watchful eye. The room smelled like lavender detergent and had a window that overlooked the parking lot. Not home, but safe enough. She sat on the edge of the bed at 11:37, her packed bag beside her, and pulled out her grandmother's compass. The silver was worn smooth from decades of handling, first by her grandmother during the years she had fled an abusive marriage and rebuilt her life alone, then by Camilla's mother, then by Camilla herself. On the back, engraved in script so small she had to squint to read it: True North. Her grandmother had given it to her the day Camilla had signed the divorce papers. "You'll feel lost for a while," her grandmother had said, pressing the compass into her palm. "That's normal. But true north doesn't change just because you can't see the stars. You'll find your way." Camilla had found her way. She had built a life, a business, a sense of safety that did not depend on anyone else's promises, and now someone was trying to take that from her. Someone who knew her routines, her vulnerabilities, the places she felt most alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Miguel. "Reyes confirmed you're settled. Lock the door. Call if you need anything." Camilla stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thank you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "I mean it. Anything." She set the phone down and traced the engraving on the compass with her thumb. Miguel had been her true north once, back when she had believed that love and partnership could coexist with his job, with the late nights and missed dinners and the way he carried every case like a weight he could not set down. She had tried to be patient, tried to understand, tried to wait, but waiting had felt like drowning, and she had chosen to save herself. Now here they were, 3 years later, drawn back together by violence and fear, trying to navigate boundaries neither of them had wanted to draw. Camilla's phone buzzed again. This time a photo from Reyes, Miguel standing outside the hotel entrance, arms crossed, scanning the parking lot. The caption read, "He's been out there for an hour. Thought you should know." Camilla walked to the window and pulled back the curtain just enough to see him. A tall figure under the streetlight, his face shadowed, his posture alert, protecting her even when she could not see him, keeping promises even when she had stopped asking him to. She let the curtain fall and pressed her hand against the glass, the compass warm in her other palm. True north, she thought, even when the stars were hidden. Miguel called her the next morning at 7:15, his voice tight with controlled urgency. "I need you to come to the precinct. I found something." 20 minutes later, Camilla sat across from him in the same interview room where this had all started, watching him spread 3 items across the desk with the careful precision of someone building a case. First, a printed photograph, edges crisp, colors slightly faded. It showed Camilla leaving her boutique at dusk, her keys in one hand, her phone in the other. In the bottom right corner, stamped in red ink, Tuesday, August 9th, 6:43 p.m. "This was in the box with the roses," Miguel said. Lee pulled it from the evidence. "The timestamp is manual. Someone used an old date stamp, the kind you'd find at a post office or library. Second, a delivery receipt from the flower shop signed for by someone named J. Miller, dated August 5th, 2:37 p.m. The handwriting was blocky, deliberate, the same style as the notes left at Camilla's boutique and apartment. Third, a statement from the flower shop owner, a woman named Eleanor Park, written on plain notebook paper in neat cursive. The man who ordered the roses paid cash, mid-50s, glasses, polite. He said they were for his daughter. I remember because he asked me not to include a card. Said he wanted to surprise her. Camilla's hands went cold, glasses mid-50s. Harold Finch, Miguel said. I ran his background last night. No priors, no restraining orders, nothing that would flag him as a threat. But I pulled his work history. He slid another sheet across the desk, a printout from the county employment records. He was a maintenance supervisor at Riverside Community College until 3 months ago. Retired early. The college is 2 blocks from your boutique. So he walked past my shop every day. For 6 years, Miguel's jaw tightened. I spoke to his former coworkers this morning. They said he was quiet, kept to himself, but occasionally made comments about women in the neighborhood. Nothing overtly threatening, just observant. One coworker said he kept a notebook where he tracked his daily routes down to the minute. Very precise, very controlled. Camilla thought of Finch at the neighborhood meeting. The way he had smiled at her, the way he had known she worked alone. What do we do? I need to bring him in for questioning, but I need more than circumstantial evidence to hold him. Miguel tapped the photograph. This timestamp is key. If I can prove he had access to a date stamp like this, and if I can place him near your boutique on August 9th at 6:43, I can start building a case. What about the flower shop owner? Can't she identify him? She can describe him, but she didn't take a photo and she doesn't remember his exact name. She wrote down J. Miller because that's what he told her. If he used a fake name, we need something concrete to tie him to the purchase. Miguel leaned back, his expression shifting from detective to something softer, something personal. Camila, I need you to know, this is moving forward. You're not alone in this. I won't let him hurt you. It was the first time he had said I instead of we. The first time he had let the boundaries slip. Camila's throat tightened. I know, she said quietly. Miguel held her gaze for one long moment, then cleared his throat and stood. Reyes will take you back to the boutique. I'm going to follow up on the date stamp, check libraries, post offices, anywhere Finch might have had access. Stay visible today. Keep your phone on. And Camila? Yes? If you see him, don't engage. Call Reyes immediately. Camila nodded and stood, her grandmother's compass a steady weight beneath her shirt. As she walked out, she glanced back and saw Miguel still standing at the desk, staring down at the photograph of her, his hands braced against the table like he was holding himself in place. Some promises, she realized, were harder to keep than others. The confrontation came 3 days later, at the post office on Maple Street. Camilla had gone to mail a package for a customer, fabric swatches for a bride in New York, and was standing at the counter, filling out the customs form, when she felt someone's eyes on her back. She turned. Harold Finch stood by the bulletin board near the entrance, wire-rimmed glasses catching the fluorescent light, a small smile on his face. He was holding a coffee cup, white, with a blue lighthouse printed on the side. Camilla's pulse spiked. She turned back to the counter, her hands shaking as she tried to finish the form, her mind racing. Call Reyes. Get out. Don't engage. But before she could reach for her phone, Finch walked up beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woody and sharp. Camila Rios, he said pleasantly. Funny running into you here. Excuse me, Camila said, her voice steady despite the panic climbing her ribs. I need to finish this. Of course, I just wanted to say. Finch leaned closer, his voice dropping to a murmur. I hope you're feeling safe these days. I heard there's been some trouble in the neighborhood. Vandalism, stalking, that sort of thing. Camilla's throat went dry. She glanced toward the postal clerk, a young man sorting packages behind the counter, oblivious. Finch tapped his coffee cup against the counter, once, twice, 3 times, a deliberate rhythm. The lighthouse on the side seemed to stare at her. It's terrible, isn't it? When someone makes you feel unsafe in your own home. When you can't trust the people who are supposed to protect you. I don't know what you're talking about, Camilla said. Don't you? Finch's smile widened. I saw the police car outside your boutique the other day. I saw Detective Hart. Tall man. Confident. You two seemed familiar. Camilla's mind screamed at her to use the safety word, to say lighthouse and hope the clerk would understand. but her voice caught in her throat. Finch set his coffee cup on the counter, right next to her customs form, the lighthouse facing her. Be careful who you trust, Camilla. Sometimes the people who say they'll protect you are the ones who hurt you most. He picked up his cup, nodded politely, and walked out. Camilla's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the edge of the counter, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps, and fumbled for her phone. She dialed Reyes with shaking fingers. Finch, she said when Reyes answered. Harold Finch. He was just here. He knows about Miguel. He knows everything. Stay where you are, Reyes said sharply. I'm 2 minutes away. Camilla ended the call and turned to the postal clerk. Excuse me, the man who just left. Does he come here often? The clerk looked up, confused. Mr. Finch? Yeah, a few times a week. He used to work at the college, so he knows everyone. Why? Does he ever use the date stamp, the red one, for official documents? The clerk's brow furrowed. Yeah, sometimes. He helps out when we're busy, stamps packages, sorts mail. He's real particular about keeping things organized. The clerk paused. Is something wrong? Camilla's stomach turned. No, thank you. She walked outside just as Reyes's patrol car pulled up and climbed into the passenger seat without a word. Tell me what happened, Reyes said. Camilla did, her voice flat and controlled, her hands still shaking. When she finished, Reyes reached for her radio. I'm calling Miguel, Reyes said. This just became an active threat. Camilla leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. The image of the lighthouse on Finch's coffee cup burned into her mind. She had almost said the word. Almost used it. Almost let fear win. But she had not. And now Miguel would know where to look next. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, and Camilla knew before she walked into the Precinct conference room that it was not going to go well. Miguel stood near the window, his expression tight. Reyes sat at the table, her jaw set, and at the head of the table sat Lieutenant Maria Chen, Miguel's supervisor, with a file folder open in front of her. Ms. Rios, Chen said, gesturing to a chair. Please sit. Camilla sat, her purse in her lap, her grandmother's compass a cold weight against her chest. Chen folded her hands on the table. I've reviewed Detective Hart's investigation into your stalking case. I've also received a formal complaint from Harold Finch's attorney, alleging harassment and unlawful surveillance. Camilla's stomach dropped. What? Mr. Finch claims that Detective Hart has been following him, questioning his former co-workers without cause, and making baseless accusations that have damaged his reputation in the community. Chen's tone was neutral, professional, but her eyes were hard. His attorney is threatening a lawsuit against the department unless we cease all investigative activity related to Mr. Finch. He threatened me, Camilla said, her voice rising. He was at the post office. He knows where I live, where I work, everything about my routine. He spoke to you in a public place, Chen interrupted. According to the postal clerk's statement, Mr. Finch was polite and did not touch you or threaten you verbally. Without additional evidence, I can't authorize further surveillance or questioning. Miguel stepped forward. Lieutenant, the timeline matches. Finch had access to the date stamp used on the photograph. He knew the victim's schedule. He has a documented history of making inappropriate comments about women. We have enough for what, detective? Chen's voice sharpened. A search warrant? An arrest? Based on what? A date stamp anyone in that post office could have used? A conversation in a public space, the fact that he walks the same streets as Ms. Rios? Based on a pattern, Miguel said, based on evidence that places him, based on circumstantial connections that any defense attorney will tear apart in 30 seconds, Chen said, and based on an investigation led by a detective who happens to be the victim's ex-husband. The room went silent. Chen looked at Miguel, her expression hard. I should have reassigned this case the moment you disclosed your prior relationship with Ms. Rios. I didn't, because you convinced me you could remain objective, but now we have a complaint, a potential lawsuit, and a mess that could compromise every case you've worked in the past 2 months. Lieutenant? You're off the case, Detective Hart. Chen closed the file folder. Effective immediately. Officer Reyes will continue monitoring Ms. Rios's safety, but all investigative work stops until we have concrete evidence that Mr. Finch has committed a crime. Miguel's jaw clenched. And if he escalates, then we respond accordingly. Chen stood. Ms. Rios, I'm sorry this has happened to you. I'm sorry we can't do more, but my hands are tied. Camilla felt the walls closing in, felt the fragile sense of safety she had built over the past 2 weeks crumble like paper. She stood, her legs unsteady, and walked out of the conference room without looking at Miguel. She made it to the parking lot before the tears came. Reyes found her there 10 minutes later, sitting on the curb with her head in her hands, her grandmother's compass clutched in her fist. He's going to get away with it, Camilla said quietly. No, Reyes said. He's not. How? You heard Chen. There's no evidence, no case, nothing. Reyes crouched beside her, her voice low and fierce. Listen to me. Miguel Hart is the most stubborn man I've ever met. If he says he'll find the proof, he'll find it. Even if it cost him his badge. Camilla looked up, her vision blurred. I don't want him to lose his job because of me. Then help him, Reyes said. Think. Is there anything Finch said, anything he did, that we haven't documented yet? Anything that might tie him to the evidence? Camilla wiped her eyes and tried to think past the fear, past the exhaustion, past the weight of 3 weeks of terror. She thought of Finch at the post office, his coffee cup, the lighthouse printed on the side. She thought of the map in the flower box, the red X marked halfway along her route. She thought of the photograph with the timestamp, the way the ink had bled slightly at the edges, like it had been pressed too hard. And then she thought of something else. The compass, she said. Reyes frowned. What? My grandmother's compass. I was wearing it the day of the first photograph, the one with the timestamp. I remember because I touched it when I locked the boutique door. Camilla pulled the compass out from beneath her shirt, her hands shaking. If the photo shows the compass, and if I can prove I was wearing it on that specific date, it confirms the timeline. It confirms Finch was watching me. Reyes's eyes lit up. Do you have any other photos from that day? Anything that shows you wearing it? I posted on the boutique's social media page that morning. A photo of a new shipment. I was in the background, adjusting a display. The compass was visible. What time? 9:30 in the morning, August 9th. Reyes stood, pulling out her phone. I'm calling Miguel. If we can match the compass in both photos, we can establish that Finch was surveilling you on a specific date and time. That's not circumstantial, that's evidence. Camilla stood as well, hope flickering in her chest like a candle in the dark. What would it feel like, she wondered, to trust someone again? To believe that promises could be kept, that safety could be more than locked doors and security cameras. Miguel called an emergency meeting 2 days later, not at the precinct but at a small diner on the edge of town, neutral ground away from Lieutenant Chen's watchful eye. Camilla sat in a booth near the back, Reyes beside her, while Miguel spread the evidence across the table like a hand of cards. First, the original photograph from the flower box, showing Camilla leaving her boutique at 6:43 in the evening on Tuesday, August 9th. Miguel pointed to the bottom right corner, the red timestamp, slightly smudged, and then to Camilla's chest in the image where the silver compass was just visible, catching the light. Second, a screenshot from the boutique's social media page, dated August 9th at 9:30 in the morning. Camilla stood in the background of the photo, arranging a display of scarves, the compass clearly visible around her neck. Miguel had printed it out and placed it next to the surveillance photo. Same compass, same day, 2 different times. This establishes that you were wearing the compass all day on August 9th, Miguel said, which means whoever took the surveillance photo was close enough to see it, close enough to focus on you specifically. Third, a sworn statement from Eleanor Park, the flower shop owner, written on official notary paper with a raised seal in the bottom corner. Miguel tapped it with one finger. Mrs. Park went through her records and found the original receipt for the roses delivered to your boutique. She remembered the transaction, because the customer insisted on paying cash and refused to give his real name. But she also remembered something else. He pulled out another sheet, a photocopy of a handwritten note from the flower shop's internal log. Customer requested no card, asked about delivery routes and times, seemed very interested in scheduling. Mrs. Park kept a log of unusual requests, Miguel said. It's part of her protocol for tracking potential fraud. She noted this transaction on August 5th at 2:37 in the afternoon because the customer's behavior raised red flags. She just didn't report it at the time. Camilla's pulse quickened. Can she identify Finch? She picked him out of a photo lineup this morning, Miguel said. 6 photos, all men in their 50s with glasses. She identified Finch without hesitation. And here's the critical part. He pulled out one more document, this one official letterhead from the county clerk's office. I requested records from the post office on Maple Street, showing everyone who had access to the date stamp in the past 3 months. Finch's name is on the list. He volunteered there twice a week, helping with sorting and stamping packages. Reyes leaned forward. So we can prove Finch had access to the stamp, that he was surveilling Camilla on August 9th, that he ordered the flowers under a false name, and that a neutral witness can identify him. Exactly. Miguel's voice was steady, controlled, but his eyes were bright. And there's one more thing. He pulled out a photograph, not of Camilla, but of a white coffee cup with a blue lighthouse printed on the side. I went back to the post office and asked the clerk about Finch's habits. The clerk said Finch always brought the same coffee cup, every single time, the lighthouse cup. I checked with the local coffee shop and they confirmed they sold a batch of those cups 2 years ago as a charity fundraiser. Only 50 were made. Camilla stared at the photo, her throat tight. He had it at the post office when he confronted me. Which means we have a signature, Miguel said. A recurring behavior that ties him to multiple incidents. It's not just circumstantial anymore. It's a pattern. Reyes pulled out her phone. I'm calling Chen. We have enough for a warrant. Miguel caught her wrist gently. Wait. Before we go to Chen, I need to confirm one more thing. He looked at Camilla. The notary seal on Mrs. Park's statement, it was signed by Thomas Greenfield, the county clerk. I spoke to him this morning. He remembered notarizing the statement because Mrs. Park specifically asked him to witness it in person. He can testify that the statement is authentic and that Mrs. Park was of sound mind when she gave it. Why does that matter? Camilla asked. Because it means we have the full triad, Miguel said quietly. Physical evidence, the photos, the stamp, the cup, a neutral witness, Mrs. Park, who has no connection to you or Finch, and validation from a public official, the county clerk, confirming the documentation is legitimate. He gathered the evidence carefully, stacking it in a neat pile. This is enough. This will hold up in court. Camilla's chest loosened for the first time in weeks. She reached for her grandmother's compass, running her thumb over the engraving, and felt the weight of fear begin to lift. What happens now? She asked. Now, Miguel said, we take this to Lieutenant Chen, we get a warrant, and we bring Harold Finch in for formal questioning. He met Camilla's eyes. And then you get your life back. Reyes stood, phone in hand. I'll make the call. Camilla stayed seated, her hand still on the compass, and looked at Miguel across the table. Thank you, she said quietly, for not giving up. Miguel's expression softened. I told you I'd keep my promise. This time Camilla believed him. The warrant was executed 48 hours later, at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning at Harold Finch's house on Maple Street. Camilla was not there. Miguel had insisted she stay at the precinct with Reyes, away from the scene. But she watched the aftermath unfold on the evening news, broadcast live from the steps of the county courthouse. Lieutenant Chen stood at a podium, flanked by Miguel and 2 other detectives, her expression calm and authoritative. Behind them in the background, Camilla could just see Harold Finch being led into the building in handcuffs, his wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the camera flashes, his face pale and drawn. This afternoon, Chen said, reading from a prepared statement, Harold James Finch was formally charged with stalking, harassment, and breaking and entering in connection with a month-long campaign of terror against a local business owner. The investigation, led by Detective Miguel Hart, uncovered substantial evidence linking Mr. Finch to multiple incidents, including surveillance, threatening communications, and theft. A reporter called out, "What was the key piece of evidence?" Chen glanced at Miguel, then back at the cameras. A combination of physical evidence, witness testimony, and documentation confirmed by the county clerk's office. Mr. Finch had access to materials used in the crime, was identified by a neutral witness, and displayed a pattern of behavior consistent with criminal stalking. Another reporter, "Is the victim safe?" "Yes," Chen said firmly. "The victim has been under protective monitoring throughout the investigation and is no longer in danger. Mr. Finch is currently being held without bail pending a formal hearing." Miguel stepped forward, his voice steady. "I want to emphasize that this case was solved because the victim documented everything, trusted the process, and refused to let fear silence her. Stalking is a serious crime. If you or someone you know is experiencing similar behavior, please contact local law enforcement immediately. You are not alone." The press conference ended. Camilla turned off the television in the precinct break room and sat in silence, her grandmother's compass warm in her palm. Reyes walked in, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "You okay?" "I think so," Camilla said. "Miguel will be back soon. He wanted to make sure everything was filed correctly before the hearing tomorrow." Camilla nodded. "Reyes, what happens to Finch now?" "He'll go before a judge tomorrow morning. The prosecutor's office is recommending he be held pending trial. With the evidence we have, he's looking at multiple felony charges. He won't be walking free anytime soon." "Good." Reyes sat down across from her. "You did this, you know. You fought back. You didn't let him win." Camilla looked down at the compass, at the engraving she had read 1,000 times. True north. "I had help," she said quietly. "Yeah," Reyes said with a small smile. "You did." 3 weeks later, Camilla stood in her boutique at dusk, locking the door for the night. When she heard footsteps behind her, she turned, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone, but it was only Miguel, hands in his pockets, a small paper bag in one hand. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to startle you. I wanted to see how you were doing." Camilla exhaled and smiled. "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually." The hearing had gone as expected. Harold Finch had been formally charged with 3 felony counts of stalking, 1 count of breaking and entering, and 2 counts of criminal harassment. The judge had denied bail, citing the severity of the crimes and the ongoing threat to Camilla's safety. The trial was scheduled for 6 months from now, but the prosecutor had assured Camilla that the evidence was overwhelming. Finch would not be free for a long time. "I brought you something," Miguel said, holding out the paper bag. "I know it's not much, but—" Camilla opened the bag and pulled out a small silver keychain in the shape of a compass, engraved with the same words as her grandmother's necklace. True north. Her throat tightened. "Miguel." "I saw it at a shop downtown and thought of you," Miguel said. "You don't have to keep it. I just wanted you to know that I see you. I see how strong you are, how brave you've been through all of this, and I'm proud of you." Camilla looked up at him. This man who had once been her husband, who had broken her heart and then put himself on the line to protect her, who had kept his promise even when it cost him professionally. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Miguel nodded, stepping back. "I should go. I just wanted to make sure—" "Miguel," Camilla interrupted. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? Just coffee. No case, no investigation. Just us." He stared at her, surprise flickering across his face. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Camilla said. And she was. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if she and Miguel could rebuild what they had lost, or if they would become something entirely new. But she knew this. She had found her way back to true north. She had learned to trust herself, to set boundaries, to ask for help without losing her strength. She had learned that safety was not the absence of fear, but the presence of people willing to stand beside her when fear came knocking. And that was enough. Miguel smiled, the first real smile she had seen in 3 years. Coffee sounds good. They walked out into the evening together, side by side, the compass keychain in Camilla's hand catching the last light of the sun. Behind them, the boutique stood secure, its windows intact, its locks holding firm. Inside on the counter, a small handwritten sign read, "Closed for the evening. Open tomorrow at 9. Thank you for your patience." Some storms, Camilla thought, taught you how to find shelter. Others taught you how to stand in the rain without breaking. She had learned both. And now, finally, she could rest. Moral: boundaries are not walls. They are the foundations of dignity. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to document it, speak it, and refuse to let it steal your voice. Justice does not always come quickly, but when it comes with evidence, patience, and people who keep their promises, it comes to stay. If this story gave you courage, subscribe and tell us, what would you have done if someone tried to make you afraid in your own home?